Welcome to the channel again. You are watching my YouTube channel Bachelor and Master English. Today, as usual, I have come with new topic of discussion. Today's discussion is about the Buddha by Elizabeth Coatsworth. In today's discussion, we shall be telling you the synopsis of this story. There shall be analysis. This analysis will help you for interpretation and critical appreciation of 4 levels of reading with the text, and then there shall be discussion questions and some relating topics of discussion. Okay, I am sure you will accompany me till the end of this video. If you are new to my channel, please become a subscriber. Subscribe my channel, and if you think this video is worth watching, please share among your friends and fellows. Here we go with the synopsis. Okay, an artist decided to paint the picture of the Buddha's life and death. He wanted to make it very lively, beautiful, and long lasting. It was going to be hung in the village temple. He hoped that even his great grandchildren might see it. So he thought deeply and imagined himself to be Prince Siddhartha. He imagined his room as the big beautiful chamber of Prince Siddhartha. He also imagined the garden and compound of him as Siddhartha's. Early next morning, he got the housekeeper to clean the room. On the first day, he sat on a clean mat, and before him was beautiful image of the Buddha. He saw his cat, Good Fortune, beside him. He tried to concentrate or understand him, that him here relates to Buddha. Feeling very happy and excited, he imagined of Siddhartha winning Asodhara among the applause, using his bows and arrows and showing his skill in archery. He imagined the palace, warriors, peacocks surrounding his life. He now heard the sounds of horses and elephants and saw swans fly over the garden. The cat did not disturb his meditation. On the second day, the housekeeper cleaned the room likewise. The artist sat before the image of the Buddha. He imagined of Siddhartha renunciation after seeing an old man, a sick man, and the body of a dead man being carried. Now he imagined the news of his son's birth bringing no delight to him. Instead, Siddhartha left his wife and son and saw that his life was a sad event. He then secretly drove into a chariot drawn by the horse Kanthaka. He imagined Buddha cut off his long hair and set princely garments. He imagined of going to the jungle, walking without shoes, begging for his food and seeking his wisdom. At last, he imagined of sitting under a big tree, that bow tree, and starting meditation. The artist then lived through the sufferings of Buddha. He also imagined of Buddha's getting enlightenment. The cat knew his master, her master was in grave mood. The artist took his housekeeper and the cat as his first disciples. When the cat refused to hear his divine words, he cursed the cat that the door of heaven is not open for him. And the third morning too, he prayed before the image of Buddha. He had now attained absolute peace. For this, he slept for 24 hours as if he were dead. Thus, in 3 days, the artist lived a whole life of the Buddha's birth, sufferings, and enlightenment. Then he woke up and painted the figure of great Buddha lying upon the couch. Thinking for 3 days, he painted the picture in less than 3 hours. his housekeeper and good fortune looked on with great respect and admiration. Okay, this is the discussion of the story and in the form of its synopsis. Okay, now let's talk about the story in our Nepali discussion. Okay, बुद्ध बुद्ध शीर्षकको कथा एलिजाबेथ कोट्सवर्थको एउटा फरक शैलीको कथा हो। यसमा एउटा कलाकार मुख्य यहाँको पात्र हुन्छ अनि उसको साथमा उसको एउटा बिरालो छ अनि उसको एउटा घरमा काम गर्ने त उसको श्रीमती हुन सक्छ। यिनै हुन् पात्र। यिनै पात्रहरूको वरिपरि घुमेर यहाँ एउटा पात्रले के गर्छ त भन्दाखेरि उसलाई चाहिँ सिद्धार्थ गौतमको एउटा कला बनाउनु छ। त्यो कला उसले स्केच गर्नु पर्यो। त्यो यस्तो बनाउनु पर्यो कि त्यो गाउँको बीचमा त्यसलाई झुन्ड्याइँदैछ, सबैले हेर्दैछन्। अब उसले त्यसलाई एउटा उत्कृष्ट कलाकृतिको रूपमा बनाउनु छ। त्यो भएर उसलाई दिएको जिम्मा उसले पुरा गर्नलाई अब कुन कुन चरणहरू कसरी अपनाउँछ त भन्ने कुराहरू चाहिँ यहाँ आउँछ। पहिलोपटक उसले के गर्छ, अब उसले चाहिँ आफ्नो कोठा सरसफा गर्छ। त्यहाँ अब त्यो आफ्नो जुन कोठालाई छ अब बुद्धकै अथवा सिद्धार्थकै चाहिँ कोठा जस्तो ठान्छ। त्यहाँ जे छ सबै चिज छ अनि उसले एउटा त्यहाँ त्यसको प्रतिमा पनि राखेको छ सिद्धार्थको। अनि त्यसपछि सबै चिज उसले त्यहाँ आडमा बिरालो पनि छ अनि सबै काम गर्छ। अब दोस्रो दिन पनि यथावत सरसफा हुन्छ अनि उसले चाहिँ एकदम बुद्धलाई चाहिँ त्यहाँ अगाडि राखेर ध्यानमग्न एकदम सबै कन्सन्ट्रेसन अथवा एकदम ध्यान दिन्छ र पुरा बुद्धलाई बुझ्न खोज्छ। बुद्धको जन्म, बुद्धको चाहिँ अब त्यो बाल्यकालदेखि लिएर उसको उसले विवाह हैन अनि उसले देखेका ती अब जिन्दगीका दुःख पीडाहरू सबै देखिसकेपछि अनि उसले दरबार त्यागिन खोजेको कुरा, त्यागेको कुरा सबै कुरा चाहिँ यहाँ आउँछ र ऊ त्यहाँ पछि उसले त्यागिसकेपछि अर्को त्यहाँ धर्म एउटा ज्ञानको लागि ऊ चाहिँ बोधको रुख मुनि, बोधि वृक्षको मुनि प्रार्थना गर्न एकदम तपस्या बसेर लामो समयसम्म, धेरै वर्षसम्म अनि त्यहाँबाट ज्ञान प्राप्ति गरिसकेपछि अनि पहिलो चाहिँ उसको आफ्नो चेलाको रूपमा उसको घरमा रहेको एउटा बिरालो अथवा उसको बिरालो भनौँ न, पहिलाको जे थियो बिरालो र उसको त्यो महिला हाउसकिपर गृहिणीलाई चाहिँ उसले पहिलो चेला बनाउँछ। तर बिरालोले चाहिँ कुरा सुन्न नमानेपछि उसलाई त अब स्वर्गको चाहिँ कुरो, स्वर्ग जाने बाटोतिर बन्द हुन्छ भनेर चाहिँ उसलाई चाहिँ बिरालोलाई त्यो खालको चाहिँ एउटा श्राप दिएको हुन्छ। त्यो यसै यी सबै कुरा सोचेर अनि ऊ चाहिँ तेस्रो दिनमा पनि ऊ 24 घण्टा यसरी सुत्यो अनि त्यो सबै काम गर्दै गर्दै 24 घण्टा पुरा सुतेर तेस्रो दिनमा 3 घण्टा नहुँदै 3 घण्टा भित्रमै यस्तो प्रकारको चाहिँ बुद्धको एउटा चाहिँ कलाकृति तयार पार्यो। त्यो तयार पार्नको लागि चाहिँ उसले कुन खालको समर्पण भाव, कुन खालको तपस्या, कुन खालको चाहिँ ध्यान, कुन खालको विचार गर्यो भन्ने कुरा नै यो सम्पूर्ण कथाको प्रसङ्ग हुन्छ। अब यहाँ यसरी चाहिँ यसको सारांश हामीले यसरी चाहिँ व्याख्या गर्छौँ। बुद्ध एलिजाबेथ कोट्सवर्थको कथा। भोलिपल्ट बिहानै गृहिणी उठिन् र घर सफा गरिन्। उनले गमलामा फुल राख्नको लागि किन्न गइन्। बिदाको लुगा लगाएर कपाल कोरेर त्यो कलाकार बिरालो त्यसलाई चाहिँ असल भाग्य अथवा फलिफाप भनौँ न, गुड फर्च्युन भनेको छ, फलिफाप सँगै मूर्तिको अगाडि बस्यो। गाउँको मन्दिरमा झुन्ड्याउन बुद्धको मृत्यु बखतको दृश्य दिई चित्र बनाउनु थियो। चित्र बनाउन अगाडि बुद्धलाई बुझ्ने प्रयास गर्नु थियो। पहिलो दिन बुद्धलाई युवा राजकुमार सिद्धार्थको रूपमा सोच्यो। राजकुमार दरबारको ठुलो कोठामा सङ्गीत, फल फल्ने जङ्गल, ताल
चराचुरुङ्गीको सुन्दर संसारमा थियो। आफ्नो युद्ध कौशलता देखाउँदै राजकुमारी यशोधरालाई उसले जितेको कुरा थियो। आफ्ना प्रतिद्वन्दीहरूको कुनै नराम्रा कुराको छाया समेत महसुस गरेन उसले। आफ्नो कल्पनामा युद्धको उपस्थिति भएकोमा कलाकार हर्ष महसुस गर्थ्यो, तर बिरालो आयो र उसको कल्पना तोड्यो। दोस्रो दिन गृहिणीले फेरि सफा गरिन् र गमलामा फुल राख्ने चिज किन्न गइन्। कलाकार बिरालोसँगै बसेर प्रार्थना गर्न थाल्यो। कलाकारलाई सिद्धार्थले गरेको त्यागका कुरा प्रतिबिम्बित भयो। राजकुमारले रथ मगाए र जानकारी नदिई सहर बाहिर निस्के। उनको बुढो मानिस ज्वरोले ग्रस्त बिरामी र मरे उनले त्यो बुढो मानिस ज्वरोले ग्रस्त बिरामी र मरेको मानिसको लास देखे। उनको सुनले यी कुराहरूलाई अथवा उनको ज्ञानले यी कुराहरूलाई, उनको मनले यी कुराहरूलाई चाहिँ आत्मसात गर्न सकेन। कलाकार खाना खाएन र बिरालो करायो। कलाकारले राजकुमार रथमा गोप्य रूपमा दरबार बाहिर निस्केको कल्पना गर्यो। उनले सुतिरहेका श्रीमती र बालकलाई एकटक हेरे र राति अन्धारोमा निस्के। कपाल खौरिएको थियो। राजकुमारको पहिरन फुकालिएको थियो। उनी एउटा बुबाको राज्यको अन्त्यतिर गएर रथ फर्काइदिए। तेस्रो दिन कलाकारले सिद्धार्थ कैयन वर्षदेखि नाङ्गो खुट्टामा हिँडेको भिक्षा माग्दै गरेको र ज्ञान खोज्दै गरेको कल्पनामा हेर्यो। अन्तमा जङ्गलमा एउटा बोधि वृक्षमुनि बसे र त्यहाँ ठुलो ज्ञान प्राप्त गरे। उनले किन मानिस दुःख पाउँछन्, दुःखबाट मुक्ति कसरी पाउन सकिन्छ भन्ने कुरा थाहा पाए। यही ज्ञान पाएपछि उनी ज्ञानी भगवान बुद्ध भए। कलाकार बुद्ध वरिपरि सबै जनावरहरू झुम्मिएको महसुस गर्यो, तर बिरालो अनुपस्थित थियो। बुद्धलाई श्रद्धा नदेखाएकोले उसले महसुस गर्यो र उनले महसुस गरेर यसैले गर्दा स्वर्गका ढोकाहरू उसको लागि बन्द भए। त्यसपछि शान्ति पाएर कलाकार निधायो। जब ऊ बिउजो सामग्री लियो र गद्दीमा बसेको भगवान बुद्धको चित्र बनायो, उसको अनुहारमा शान्ति छायो। बुद्ध कस्तो देखिनुपर्छ भन्ने कुरा बुझ्न उसलाई 3 दिन लाग्यो, तर उसको चित्र बनाउन 3 घण्टा भन्दा नि कम समय लाग्यो। यसरी मान्छेले कसरी एउटा ध्यान, कुनै विषयवस्तुप्रति राम्रो ध्यान, त्यो विषयवस्तुलाई राम्ररी बुझ्न खोज्छ, त्यो मान्छे आफ्नो चाहिँ प्रस्तुतिमा सबल बन्न सक्छ। त्यो भएर कुनै पनि कुरा सिक्नु छ भने, कुनै कुरा गर्नु छ भने हतारमा काम गर्नु हुँदैन। हतपतको काम लतपत भने जस्तै त्यो कुरालाई राम्रोसँग बुझेर, परिवेश हेरेर, परिस्थिति अनुसार अनि सबै कुरालाई बुझेर अगाडि बढेर अनि आफ्नो कार्य सम्पादन गर्न सकियो भने त्यो कार्य, आफूले गरेको कार्य उत्कृष्ट कार्य पनि हुनसक्छ। त्यो चाहिँ उनले बनाएको केही कलाकृति त्यस्तो लेखिएको कृति छ भने त्यो दीर्घजीवी हुनसक्छ, कालजयी हुनसक्छ। त्यसो भएर यहाँ निबन्धकारले एउटा कलाकारको जुन समर्पण भाग देखाए, उसको चाहिँ एउटा त्यो खालको चाहिँ तपस्या गर्न सक्ने क्षमता देखाए, त्यो खालको चाहिँ मनस्थिति, त्यो त्यसरी चाहिँ उसले हेर्न सक्ने, त्यो कुरालाई चाहिँ राम्रोसँग बुझ्न सक्ने, त्यसरी चाहिँ एउटा लामो समयसम्म मेडिटेसनमा बसेर ध्यान गरेर चाहिँ कुनै कुरालाई चाहिँ वास्तविक कुरा सुरुदेखि अथवा अन्तसम्म अथवा आद्योपान्त सबै प्रस्तुत गर्न सक्छ भने हामी किन सक्दैनौँ? हामी विद्यार्थीले पनि त्यसरी नै चाहिँ ध्यानमग्न हुनुपर्छ। हामीले पनि कुनै विषयवस्तुमा त्यसरी नै एउटा ध्यान दिनुपर्छ। अथवा कुनै समस्या समाधानको चाहिँ कुरा आयो, द्वन्द्व समाधानको कुरा आयो, अथवा कुनै नेतृत्वका कुरा आए, कुनै जे आउँछ जिन्दगीका एउटा यात्रामा जे खालको चाहिँ सङ्घर्षहरू, जे खालको अवरोधहरू, बाधा अवरोधहरू आइपुग्छन्, ती समस्याहरू समाधान गर्न हतपताएर चाहिँ त्यसमा चाहिँ एकैचोटि अब पछुताउ हुने गरी चाहिँ निर्णय गर्नु हुँदैन, त्यही केही पनि गर्नु हुँदैन। मतलब के हो भने हामी कुनै कुरा गर्दैछौँ भने एकदम सोचेर, एकदम ध्यान दिएर, त्यसलाई चाहिँ राम्रोसँग बुझेर अनि त्यसलाई चाहिँ प्रस्तुत गर्ने हाम्रो जमर्को हुनुपर्छ। न कि उतिखेरै चाहिँ अहिले आयो अनि गयो अनि पछाडि चाहिँ बिग्रियो भनेर अनि फेरि खप्की खायो। यस्ता धेरै कुराहरू हुन्छन् समाजमा, जिन्दगीमा धेरै कुराहरू हुन्छन्। ती कुराहरूबाट चाहिँ मान्छे सचेत रहनुपर्छ र उसको मुख्य ध्यान के हो त, उसलाई दिएको जिम्मेवारी के हो त, आफूले लिएको जिम्मेवारी के हो, आफूले गर्नुपर्ने कुरो के हो, काम कर्तव्य के हो, त्यसका चाहिँ चरणहरू के हुन्, त्यसलाई कसरी म चाहिँ अगाडि बढाउन सक्छु भनेर उसले चाहिँ सबै कुराहरू गर्छ। उसलाई सबै महत्त्वपूर्ण कुरा के हो त भन्दा वातावरण निर्माण गर्नु। वातावरण निर्माण भनेको अर्काले बनाइदिने होइन, आफैले बनाउने हो। आफूले कस्तो वातावरण बनाउन खोजेको छ त्यस्तै। यहाँ पनि अब गृहिणीले चाहिँ घर सफा गरिदिने, अनि त्यहाँपछि अब त्यहाँ बिरालो आएर बसेर कहिले बिरालोको कुरा छ, अनि त्यसपछि 24 घन्टा सुतेको कुरा छ, अनि फेरि उठेर आएर भट्टाभट चाहिँ 3 घन्टा नलाउँदै चाहिँ बुद्धको चाहिँ चित्र बनाइसकेको छ। अनि उसले बुद्धको ज्ञान प्राप्त गरिसकेपछि उसले चाहिँ एउटा आफ्ना चेलाहरू बनाउनु पर्या हुन्छ। गुरु अब आफ्नो ज्ञानको विस्तार गर्नको लागि चाहिँ आफ्ना पथ प्रदर्शकहरू आफ्ना के भन्छ अनुयायीहरू बनाउनको लागि चाहिँ उसले कसलाई आफ्नो चाहिँ ज्ञान वितरण गर्ने त, त्यो भन्छ। जसले उसले भनेको मान्दैन त्यसलाई चाहिँ एउटा आवेशमा आएर चाहिँ दण्ड त्यस्तो खालको चाहिँ एउटा निर्णय पनि सुनाएको छ। धेरै कुराहरू छन्। मुख्य कुरा के हो भने जिन्दगीमा समस्या अथवा कुनै काम गर्नु छ भने त्यो काम, आफूलाई दिएको काम, आफूले लिएको जिम्मेवारी राम्रोसँग निर्वाह गर्नको लागि कुनै पनि व्यक्तिले पुरा समर्पण देखाउनुपर्छ। एकदम त्यो विषयवस्तुमा ध्यान दिनुपर्छ, अनि त्यो विषयवस्तुमा राम्ररी सोच्नुपर्छ। पुरा सोचिसकेपछि त्यसको चाहिँ कुन रूपमा चाहिँ आफूले त्यसलाई प्रस्तुत गर्ने त्यसरी प्रस्तुत गर्नुपर्छ। त्यसो भएको हुनाले अब कथाकारले अब बुद्ध भन्ने चाहिँ हामी प्रायःले बुझ्नुपर्छ। बुद्धको एउटा चाहिँ एउटा बिम्ब यहाँ जुन प्रयोग गरिएको छ, एउटा सबैले थाहा भएको बिम्ब हो। त्यो बिम्ब भनेको के हो त भन्दाखेरि एउटा राजकुमार सिद्धार्थ यशोधरासँग बिहा गरेको, छोरा राहुल पाएको, अनि श्रीमती र चाहिँ छोरालाई अथवा राजदरबार राजगद्दी सबै त्याग्नुको मुख्य कारण के हो? एउटा रोगी बिरामी, त्यसपछि चाहिँ एउटा बुढो, अनि मरेको मान्छे देखेर ओहो यस्तो हुँदो रहेछ है संसार, यो दुःखको कारण के रहेछ त, यो कुरा खोज्छु भनेर चाहिँ हिँडेको मान्छे। अनि त्यसपछि दरबार त्यागिसकेपछि सबै कुरा दरबारका सुख सुविधा चाहिँ सबै त्यागेर अनि तपस्या गरेको र रुखमुनि बसेर लामो समय लाएर गरेको तपस्याबाट ज्ञान प्राप्त भएको, सिद्धार्थबाट चाहिँ गौतम बुद्ध भएको, सारा कुराहरू चाहिँ आउँछ नि त। हो, त्यो भएको हुनाले हामीले कथाकारले चाहिँ हामीलाई कुनै पनि कुरामा समर्पण हुनुपर्छ र हतार गर्नु हुँदैन। हामी आफ्नो कार्य सम्पादन गर्न कुनै पनि विषयवस्तु राम्रोसँग बुझेर त्यो प्रति लागियो भने कहिले पनि असफल भइँदैन भन्ने कुरा भनेको छ। ओके, द्याट्स अल विथ नेपाली डिस्कसन. नाउ हियर कम्स द एनालिसिस अफ द स्टोरी. Here in a point-wise analysis that will help some of us, most of us, let's say, to interpret and analyze and critically comment the story. So these points, there are 5 points in this slide. The artist's cat was the artist in deep meditation. The Buddha grasped the cat into nirvana. An artist's miracle success is possible on how he understands the topic of his assignment. The artist has to climb to the heights of meditation for success. This is one example of assimilation. Meditation is preparedness to attend to a task. The preparedness may take a long time before taking the task. The story tells spiritual virtue is miracle. The artist was the simulated Buddha. Okay. As we go through Elizabeth Coatsworth's short story, the Buddha, we come to know that the story seems to make 2 points. Firstly, it seems to highlight the power of meditation. The artist meditates for 3 days and
The meditation enables him to understand the nature of his task properly. Secondly, the writer seems to claim that a task becomes much easier if a person starts up after fully concentrating it. The artist was assigned the task of creating a painting of the death of the Buddha. When he received this task, he did not start it hastily. Instead, he meditated for 3 days and fully understood what he was supposed to do. And then he was able to create the painting in less than 3 hours. In the story, the writer might be trying to tell us that one must live the life of a particular person if one wants to make a masterpiece. He may be telling that we must be devoted to our work to become successful. Similarly, death is natural and it doesn't discriminate between rich and poor. The only way to understand a person well is to live his or her life fully. Besides, the story also highlights the compassion of the Buddha when good fortune is graced by the Buddha. The writer also wants to spread the message of Buddha about life, renunciation, penance, peace and enlightenment. Death is suffering to those who only run after physical pleasures, and it is peace to those who want to attain pleasures in peace. Alluding to Buddha, the story contains some unrealistic elements. How is it possible for the artist to meditate for 3 days? Does not he feel hungry and weak? After his 3 days meditation, the artist sleeps continuously for 24 hours. There are many disagreeable things in the story. Can a person go on sleeping for the entire day? Again, another loophole in the story is when the artist wakes up, he immediately starts creating the painting. Isn't he hungry? In spite of such unrealistic elements, the story is enlightening. Particularly, it is enlightening to a person who does not know anything about the life of the Buddha. Having read this short story, we find that it contains the major events of the Buddha's life: birth, life, marriage, renunciation, penance and nirvana. Can the modern readers believe the existence of gods, devils or the heaven here? Why was the cat not allowed to enter the heaven? Is that justice to the silent cat which did not disturb artist's meditation? Buddha had a love for every living thing. Why was the cat refused to go to the heaven? Was he selfish that he needed homage for others? Is life concerned with give and take business only? The writer also highlights the importance of meditation. Though this story presents a theme about life, death and Buddha's principle, I have some points of dissatisfaction with the writer. Some questions I want to raise are: is it possible for people to sleep 24 hours pretending as if they were dead? Is there really the existence of gods, devils and heaven? Can we paint the picture by imagining their nature? Okay. Now, here are some discussion questions. First is summarize the story in your own words. Okay. The artist had to paint a picture of the death of Buddha to be hung in the village temple. To do this, he had to understand the Buddha. On the first day, he imagined himself to be young Prince Siddhartha, living in the palace. He went and won the Princess Yasodhara in the competition and made her the princess and the prospective queen of his state. He had no feeling against his rivals. The artist felt that a line of servants were serving his food when his housekeeper came with his midday meal. imagine his cat good fortune to be a dancing girl. On the second day, he became Siddhartha, who renounced everything, seeing an old man, a sick and dead man. Feeling powerless, he wanted to know the cause of suffering. At night, he left his wife and son and went secretly out of his father's kingdom. The prince's pain made the artist tired the next morning. On the third day, he imagined to be Siddhartha sitting under a bow tree, being unmoved by temptation. He got a great wisdom. Enlightened he was. He loved every living thing, including the rocks, as his own wife or son. He wandered here and there, making disciples and curing happiness. Now he was 80 and about to die. The artist looked for the cat and remembered that the cat was not allowed to go to heaven because it had paid no homage to the Buddha. He felt sad, disheartened for the cat, knowing all this about the Buddha. He slept for 24 hours. After this, in less than 3 hours, he painted the picture of the Buddha dying peacefully on his couch. Okay, this is the short summary of the story. Now, here is assimilation. The assimilation here, after reading the story, what my perception was, okay, how I can be a part of this. Elizabeth Coatsworth's story, the Buddha, gave me new method of inspiration. The story taught me to understand something fully and realistically before we point or create or write about any subject matter. One day I had to write an essay on beggars for an international essay competition. I am a rich and well-educated person. I spent my childhood among various facilities and comforts. I felt the lack of nothing. While studying in college level, all my demands were fulfilled by my parents. I got no chance to understand poverty, suffering, pain and difficulties. I decided to realize the miserable life of beggars. Thus I left Birganj and went to Janakpur Dham. I disguised myself to look like a sage and begged for 2 days. I wandered door to door. Some people called me lazy man. Some scolded with bad words and that pinched me at my heart. And some led their dogs to chase me. Eventually I understood what begging is like. I wrote realistic essay which won the award and got published in the Rising Nepal. Okay, this is my assimilation here. And by reading this story, I convinced that a reader can live the life of the character in the book. By feeling intensely, we can become the Buddha. The quality of life demands or depends on the quality of feeling. One can feel anything if one is serious. We can correct our lives by correcting our feelings. I also came to know the relativity theory of time. One can live the whole life of the Buddha just in 3 days. Okay. Now, here I go with another question. Compare and contrast Virginia Woolf's vision to that of Buddha. Virginia Woolf's vision to that of Buddha. The Buddha thinks that life and death turns on the wheel of the world until one gets enlightenment. One cannot be free from suffering even after one dies. Even rocks, stones and waves in their turns become mean and suffer, and be happy as men are. So, death is not an end of life, and thus it is not the end of suffering. Only wisdom of enlightenment makes man free from birth, and thus he becomes free from death. To Virginia Woolf, death is a great force. One has to struggle hard in order to survive.
Death is the helplessness, the failure to do that the thing or the awkwardness. Even the minute creature makes a great effort to live. Unlike the Buddha, she thinks that death is stillness and quiet. Seemingly, she does not believe in birth and death. To her, death is the end of everything. Death is the end of everything. And here is another question. The author says, the artist must strive to understand the Buddha before he could paint him. How does the artist go about trying to understand the Buddha? Have you ever tried to understand something or someone through similar method? Okay. This is the question, and the discussion regarding this question that for 3 days the artist strove to understand the Buddha before he could paint him. First, he thought as the Buddha is Siddhartha, the young prince. He saw in his imagination all kinds of beauty and happiness in the palace within the walls. Warrior life of Siddhartha, his marriage with Yasodhara, all the worldly facilities and provisions were around him. The second day, the artist thought of Siddhartha driving through the city without any announcement. He saw an old man and a man who was sick with fever, and the dead man being carried on the shoulders by the people. Siddhartha was helpless in spite of his princehood. He heard of his son's birth, but he only thought how sad life would be for the child. He did not feel jubilant after being a father. On the third day, the artist saw the Prince Siddhartha giving up all the beautiful world of his youth and living the life of the palace. The artist imagined how Siddhartha had wandered on foot, begging for his food and seeking wisdom. Eventually, he understood the truth of the sufferings under a boar tree, meditating for a long time. With this knowledge, he became the enlightened one, that is the Buddha, whom we regard Buddha, the enlightened, the person who got knowledge, who got the great knowledge, supreme knowledge about life and death and sufferings, and that is the Buddha. Siddhartha Gautam became the Buddha after this, after great penance, great meditation, and he got enlightened. Then the artist had peace of mind too. He painted the whole scene which he had imagined for 3 days easily within 3 hours. Okay. So, with this discussion, I have come to the end of my today's lesson. Today we talked about Elizabeth Coatsworth, the Buddha, and in our today's discussion we talked about synopsis, with discussion relating to critical analysis and interpretation, assimilation also, and the discussion we had directly or indirectly talked about 4 levels of reading in the text as well, the assimilation and the questions. These 2 textual questions given in our book also have been discussed. I am sure you got the points. If you have any queries, you can put your ideas in my comment box. I should like to thank you very much for your time and patience. I shall be back again with another video. Till then, have a nice time.